Greetings, everyone! It's I, Tantisnar Van Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome, one and all! Are you excited for another day of lore to talk about? We're once again diving into Golarion, the Pathfinder role-playing games setting. I hope you're going to enjoy today. Of course, whether you're joining me live on Twitch, where this is being recorded, or later on YouTube, hello to all of you. For those of you on YouTube, just remember liking, subscribing, ringing the bell, all the good things to support there. My question for today is, have you played an Azarketi, or as they were formerly known in 1st edition, a Gilman? Because they have evolved and changed into 2nd edition, and probably will get some evolving and changing more or less. And, you know, maybe this is one of those ones that will get major lore changes with the core. I don't know. I get a feeling we're not really going to get major core changes with the monster core or anything beyond here, but you never know. Why don't we dive into it, though, and start talking about this interesting ancestry you could play. So the first place I like to talk about are the main sources if you want to do additional research. I like talking about this. I like the idea that if you're out there and you want to do some research on your own beyond what I'm talking to you about, you've got some places to go to. And if you're looking into 1st edition, of course, Raiders of the Favored Sea does, from the Skulls and Shackles Adventure Path, does have a big thing about the oceans of Golarion that talks about that. The Inner Sea World Guide kind of talks about them. This is when they were still Gilman, though, may I note, and on the Inner Sea Monster Codex. When we finally get into 2nd edition, this is where we get to them being Azarketi, finally. The Lost Omens World Guide, the Ancestry Guide about playing them, and of course Absalom City Lost Omens does have some information about it because it relates to them and their society. So who are the Azarketi? As I said, they have been known as Gilman. Low Azlanti they've also been known as. They are an ancestry of amphibious humanoids who live and are in mostly the Arcadian Ocean, Steaming Sea, and Inner Sea. They are believed to be the last direct descendants of the Azlanti people. Granted, it doesn't mean that there aren't other people of Azlanti blood out there. It's just that they are probably marked as the most direct descendants that exist today. Interestingly enough, even though they are aquatic. We'll talk about that. When you see an Azarketi in the Inner Sea region, they will actually most closely resemble ancient Azlanti people than any other humanoids, especially other humans who do mark Azlanti blood. It's not as pure, it's an intermixed, it's from people that fled the island, settlers, those kind of things. The Azarketi have their forebears pronounced and haughty facial features, the rare purple eyes, which were a hallmark of the Azlanti people. Their hair is generally dark, and they have pale skin from living far from the sun's rays. They're an undersea people. They have 3 piscine gills above their shoulders on both sides of their neck that do allow them to breathe underwater. They can also breathe air, but it is unfortunate that naturally they can't be away from water for very long, be it seawater or freshwater. If it's more than 24 hours away from it, they begin to develop organ failure and have to then basically submerge in fresh or salt water to refresh themselves. So they do have to kind of soak themselves once a day in order to stay alive. You'll find that there is a lot of Azarketi that go into a variety of technical abilities, especially for adventurers. They have ability to navigate and athletic capabilities, affinity for water. Things like rangers make it great there because they can fight both on land and water. Fighters, connections to the sea, druids. Some of them are connected with the Ogolthus and can get occult magic, becoming sorcerers. And there are some academically inclined that go to bards and wizards. So they are a group that has actually got a lot of variety when it comes to classes if they're an adventurer. They don't particularly go to one or the other. Got a lot of choices. So, unfortunately for most humans living on the Azlant continent, they died during Earthfall. Either burned by the infernos caused by the meteoric impacts, or drowned in earthquakes or tidal waves that swallowed up the mighty empire. What they were saved by, the remaining that didn't manage to flee or were already off the continent, well, the original masters of Azlant, who were very unhappy and caused Earthfall, the Ogulthus. Those original beings that basically controlled humanity, wanted to keep controlling them. Azlants broke away from them and overpowered them. Yeah, they tried to bring a cataclysmic meteorite down to the ground. That caused Earthfall. More stories to that, but effectively, they failed to nuke the planet. Regardless, though, they saw what remained of these original servants and decided to take them in. They flesh-warped them and changed them so they could survive in an aquatic domain below the waves. The thing about the Ogulthus is they lose interest in a lot of their experiments very rapidly, and the Azarketis were no different. So they completed their transformation and just basically left them alone for a millennia or so. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't some Azarketi that still serve as spies for Ogulthu Masters, aka Aboliths, as they are in current lore. Might change for Monster Core. But, yeah, there are still some under Ogulthu influence, but the Ogulthu don't really have the same kind of power empire as they did in those ancient days on Golarion now anyway, so it's a kind of mixed bag and might be more individual Ogulthu masters or Ogulthu that would influence groups of Azarketi. It doesn't mean they can't, but your average Azarketi probably doesn't get involved in this. So now we go to the thousands of years later, and we do have contingents of Azarketi throughout the oceans, and there is some connected to a few of the surface places. Certainly, one major group is with Andoran. There's a contingent that are with Andoran, and there's also a group that presented the government the keystone of the Arch of Eridan, which they dragged there from the bottom of the Hairspit Strait, basically to support Andoran's commitment to freedom and equality, the democratic nation of Andoran. There are some more on Golarion, but we'll talk about that a little later from now. But now you know their origins, and yeah, they've been kind of left to develop on their own in the oceans. Now, we talk about, there are a number of differences in groups of Azarketi. They are, of course, still a repository for ancient Azlanti lore. They've got strong stories, arts, oral traditions that link to the Azlanti that have survived through their descendants. And many are diligent scholars of ancient civilizations that would know where the nearest Azlanti ruins are to where they're located. Now we do have to turn back to the Ogulthu because they are connected with them. Okay? Great. So, because of their origin, they do have a connection with the Ogulthus. Now, Azarketi in particular is resistant to enchantment magic, save for that of an Ogulthu. They are vulnerable to the influence of them. It's a legacy of the old control that they had over top of them. It's almost like they have this post-hypnotic suggestions deep in their biology from when they flesh warp them that give them the ability to exert some control through keywords and images. There are those that still serve their creators. Some can be unwilling in this case, which again can unfortunately mean there can be distrust for the Azarketis. Even free Azarketis do feel shame at this history and kind of can be very individualistic because they worry about influence from these creatures. So, Ogulthu has their programming in Azarketi's mind trigger. Many that are influenced this, that they gain control over, they've managed to exert some dominance over, descend into insanity and turn to worship of the great old ones, basically the outer gods of the far realms. Those that are most self-aware of the Azarketi do realize the true nature and embrace their role as Ogulthu servants, becoming awakened agents. So, yes, most self-aware ones. Effectively, if they understand what's happening to them, rather than just descending into maddened worshippers, they can actually become like corrupted individuals and like, you know, like, yes, I am your servant and you are my master. We will do your bidding kind of thing. You know, it's unfortunate that that's kind of like, if they gain control of you, that's the two choices. Not really great for when they gain control of you. Awakened agents gather data on the surface. Their fellow Azarketis carry out missions for their master's agenda. Some will lead mystery cults of so-called hidden Azlanti gods or newly risen ocean spirits, and the members will never know truth about their patron, who is in... I'll go through. There are some awakened agents that are just shy of insane, while others view their acts as necessary to secure their people's position as the favored pets, even if it means sacrificing the rest of the world. The Ogulthus will actually sometimes entrust awakened agents with powerful magics. Now, let's move away from dark influences on the poor Azarketi and talk about those that are distinctive cultural groups amongst the Azarketi. Because there are a number that have developed over the time that they've been separated from humanity. They have spread to many of Golarion's oceans. The Arcadian Ocean, Steaming Seas, Inner Sea, as I said, and the ruins of ancient Azlant are the places where you can find the most of them. Doesn't mean you're not going to find them pretty much anywhere there's water. And again, despite concentrations in certain places, they do have distinctive subcultures, as I'm talking about here. Let's talk about each of these 5 distinctive subcultures. The Alvadna, I got it right, I think, Alvadna. Again, if I mispronounce anything in any of these videos, apologies, I'm not great at pronouncing things. They're the ones that have adapted to deep life in the oceans of Golarion. They're kind of adept to the midnight depths. They have larger eyes than your average Azarketi. They'll see much better in the darkness. Like many deep-sea fish, their skin is semi-translucent. They've mastered binding the marine snow found in the deepest depths into a thin fabric-like sheets that can be used for manufacturing clothing. The image I'm using here would be of a Alvadna. So they live in deep-sea trenches, and they tend to be very reclusive. They do live in larger communities and favor a more sedentary lifestyle than a lot of the other Azarketi lifestyles. Gelatinous creatures such as sea cucumbers and jellyfish are their main foods. Though they will, again, fashion the marine snow into nets to catch and eat deep-sea fish, starfish, eels. They often frequent underwater volcanoes and use their control over water to shape lava emerging from these volcanoes into tools and weapons. Then there is the Erevar. They dwell along rivers, swamps, lakes, and other inland bodies of water rather than the ocean depths. They resemble a lot of the other Azarketi ethnicities, though tend to have darker brown skin compared to a lot of the deep-dwelling ones, and especially from the Alvandas, because they get exposed to the sun a lot more. So, by dwelling in these smaller areas of water, their culture is adapted to be more closely intertwined with the land. Oh, the Midnight Zone area sounds about 1,000 meters down to around 4,000 meters. Okay, so yeah, that's where the Alvandas live. Thank you, Worm. So they live along banks of fertile rivers, half-submerged swamps, marshlands, in the base or in caverns behind large waterfalls. They actually have an agrarian lifestyle, forming crops and rearing livestock, and they're particularly fond of pets. They keep several types of domesticated birds, fish, aquatic mammals as companions. They do tend to be less isolationist than other Azarketis, and do welcome visitors to their settlements and trade with neighbors. So the Aravar are the Azarketi you're going to kind of find, you know, and probably interact with most, likely. These Inzenti are what most people that live near the Inner Sea think of when they imagine an Azarketi. They are the most populous of the heritage, and they live primarily in the Inner Sea region. They vary in appearance. Their skin ranges from human tones to pearlescent whites, yellows, greens, and pinks. Inzenti have prominent ridges that run the length of their skull, and their eyes are normally an intense shade of purple. For fashion, they tend to favor light jewelry like bracelets, wristbands, anklets from gold, coral, or pearls. They dwell in cities scattered across the sea floor of the inner sea and Arcadian Ocean. They're a construction out of an elegant mix of coral and seaweed. They're normally surrounded by a range of subaqueous farms where they raise fish, crustaceans, oysters, both as food and for other byproducts. Inzenti hold the Azlanti Empire. Cool. In the highest reverence of all the Azarketi people. Basically, they see themselves as the true direct descendants. And they see themselves as the progenitor of the Azarketis. All the other types of Azarketi are broken off from them. So they oftentimes are the ones that are most likely going to be studying the Azlanti, making pilgrims to the sunken Azlanti ruins, into the continent, and venturing beyond their ocean homes to coastal museums or universities to understand their ancestors more. So the Inzenti are the ones that are the most obsessed with that ancestry. The Ozalon are those that dwell in tropical seas and run parallel to the coast of Grund. They have larger, more beautiful, decorative head fins than other Azarketi heritage. Remember, I said the last one had a ridge. They have like an actual head fin. Ozalons normally wear little beyond seaweed skirts. They usually decorate their outfits with bracelets, anklets, and coral shells. Ozalons live across the fevered sea and more tropical reaches of the Arcadian Ocean. They make their home along coral reefs, green seaweed forests. They do regularly venture from their aquatic homes onto the shorelines to gather food and other resources from the land. They just as often venture only as far as the beach, since they adore spending time sunbathing. Ozalons possess a great knowledge of poisons and toxins, which they harvest from the region's various venomous subaqueous creatures. They've also developed a great deal of knowledge for the unpredictable weather of the tropics that allows them to predict perfect conditions in a manner that appears almost mythical to outsiders. And then finally we have the Usena. These are Azarketi who have adopted to the frigid northern oceans of Golarion. They're shorter and stockier than typical Azarketi. They lack the head fins that some of the other heritages have. Instead, they have a crop of short, dense hair. Usenas have a thin layer of blubber that actually helps protect them against the frigid cold, and they clothe themselves in form-fitting bodysuits made of seal hide or shark skin. They live in the frigid waters of the steaming sea that borders the northernmost reaches of Vastian. They normally live in small underwater homes carved from ice formations that dot the steaming sea. During the coldest months, they dwell under the frozen ice to hunt bears, walruses, seals, and seabirds, but during the warmer months, they work together with other Unsa families to herd vast schools of fish, as well as more dangerous prey like whales and sharks. Every night, they surface to stargaze, share tales and songs, and they often actually worship Desna or the inferior lords such as Polora or the black butterfly. And that's our Azarketi cultural groups. Now let's move back to Golarion as a planet to talk about a little bit more where you can find some other places in the planet where you can, locate them. There's the town of Escadar, located in the island of Korthos, within Absalom, which is the only terrestrial city with an embassy of the Azarketi. It's located in the House of the Crescent Wave, known as the Wet House. Azarketi offer information of the sea, meet with officials from Absalom's Low Council, train hippocampi instructors for the city's sea cavalry. They often actually worship at the Azlanti ruins in the town center and partake in Escadar's many warrens of vice. So there is a large population in Escadar. Besides Escadar, they do live nearby or visit the surface city of Dobel, an Absalom neighborhood the Absalom neighborhood of Giltown, and much further afield, the aquatic river kingdom of Outsea. So those are the 3 other places: Dubel, Giltown, and Outsea. Plus some undersea caverns of the sunken Azlant continent. Groups of Azarketi are oftentimes aware of their origins, maintain a settlement in the Steaming Sea, where they raid ships and fend off the spire-worn elves. So there is some in the Steaming Sea aware of their origins, that raid ships, fight spire-worn elves, and basically are hoping to track Ogulthu's attention and basically become servants of them again. Again, Ogulthu are very powerful creatures and have great influence. Yeah, they're not great masters, but in a dangerous world, sometimes that's where you go for. Unfortunately. Something dangerous just to protect you. And to make you stronger. But that's the Azarketi. They're a really interesting group because they're, like so many other sea-based humanoids, you do find there is, unfortunately, Ogulthu influence. Not everyone, but there are plenty of them that have been influenced by these alien creatures from beyond the stars, which, maybe I should do a video about them once they're updated in Monster Core. But once I've read up about the updates and stuff. But still, nonetheless, they have developed on their own, and they do have unique cultures, unique offshoots that have adapted for the regions they are, and plenty of them are just people, beings. It is unfortunate that they do have a weakness to their old masters that can result in groups of them or societies of them being influenced by them, corrupted by them. The Ogulthu are not gone from the oceans of Golarion, and their influence remains. The Azarketi do their best to live their lives. And yes, that old influence does mean they tend to not necessarily be xenophobic, but hesitant to trust and connect up with others, to remain with themselves, and even sometimes trust and connect up with each other, which can be a difficulty too. But their cities, their settlements are dotted throughout the oceans of the world, and they've done a good job of spreading what might be the last direct descendants, the most pure-blooded Azlanti people left. Yeah, they've been fleshwarped, they've been changed to something entirely different, becoming aquatic. But as Azlanti, that old human empire's blood still remains strong within them, much more than a lot of other places. And it's how they remain. So whether we're going to see in the future some major updates to their lore, I don't think so. I think Ogulthu will see some changes to their lore and evolving how they exist, but I think they're going to remain. We just might not see the form the Ogulthu Masters have the form it has that would be Aboleth. They might just be something different. They're still the Ogulthu Masters. And still, we'll probably still keep with the Azarketi and enjoy more connections with them and see that they're an interesting group that you might want to play at some point in time. But anyway, that will be it for today. Remember to check out all my other tabletop stuff. I stream this live on Twitch and record the videos and then set them up on YouTube. My lore days are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and then I've got Saturdays, a backup day if I have to miss any of those because of family schedule. I do gaming streams Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, if you want to check those out. Got Crimson Queen, Wednesdays, 9 p.m., a live play Pathfinder 1st Edition. Go check that out. It's really fun. We have a great time. I highly recommend it. And discussing tabletop, we talk about the news of the week, deeper discussions on interesting topics related to tabletop. Go check that one out. At 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Those are the live times for both of those, but they will be up on YouTube, so you don't necessarily need to catch it live. I have social media, Discord, Twitter, anything you can check out where I post schedules, cat pics, and that kind of stuff. All right, everybody. I'm going to get running. There's still some more stuff I got to do today. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Azarketi. We're going to talk about more ancestries, more locations, and more lore of Golarion in the future. But until those times, and we get into that, I bid all of you out there deep and wonderful. Farewell.